Would you agree that for a company to be successful, you need a success culture and you also need expertise, of course. But what is actually that intersection between a success culture and expertise? Or to ask it a different way, what is the role that expertise plays in your success culture? I'd like to talk to you about three things here. One is, let's take a look at what your expertise actually consists of. And second, how important is it to share it? And how do you best share it? What are the best practices in today's fast-changing world for that? And number three, what is the value of an expert? Perhaps we need to expand our thinking around all three of these subjects as we're creating an amazing success culture that helps us thrive and be an important player in our field now and in the long run. All right, let's talk about your expertise. What expertise do you have? Think about it. What did it take for your company to get to the point it is at today? What expertise did it take? What experience flows into the results you produce? And even what wisdom flows into that on a daily basis? You see, it's way more than just textbook knowledge, isn't it? And there's a lot of stuff that's in your brain and in the brain of the people who work on your team that contributes to that success. In fact, that vastly defines that success. And I call that brilliance. It's expertise, experience, and wisdom. Now, you may not think it's brilliant. You may think, oh, that's just the stuff we have. It's the stuff in our broom closet. But no, please consider how important it is. It's the fuel that has gotten your business to where it is today, isn't it? And now think about, where do we keep that fuel? It's in the brains of people, and they go home and they go to sleep and they go on vacation, and someday they will not come back to the office for one reason or another. They retire, they quit and find another job, they may create another company. And turnover, it's definitely gone up. I just spoke to somebody who created a company in 1990 together with another partner, and now their company has 550 employees. Amazing. Now they're a high expertise consulting company, so their brilliance is really what they're selling. What have they done to maintain that brilliance, to keep that brilliance in their company? Well, that brings me to the second point. How do we preserve our brilliance? How do we share it? How do we make sure that it sticks around? I call that making, leveraging it and making it immortal. It's really about getting brilliance out of the brain of the person that's in right now and making it available so you can put it in the heads of other people, right? So how do we do that? So traditionally, the way we do it is sort of an apprentice model. We teach other people, often one-on-one, and a little here and a little there as it comes up. Or sometimes we do it more systematically, but we still do it person to person. But how much of that, and that's great, but how much of that sharing actually gets documented? In most companies, that is very little. Very little of the teaching actually gets captured in a way that it can be used long-term. But how important is that? Now, back to the company I just mentioned. They're in a very fortunate place. Well, they have created that fortune in essence because they have paid so much attention to the mentoring process and passing on knowledge from one person to another. But even they have turnover now that is greater than it used to be. So if you have a turnover of, say, only 10 to 15%, which is actually a phenomenal number now, Think about how much of your fuel is leaving the company on a consistent basis. It's brain drain. It's irreplaceable or very, very difficult to replace. And if we say that brilliance is like fuel for your company, then essentially what you got is a leaky fuel can. Now think about it. So how important is it to share the knowledge in a way that it sticks around? Well, this is exactly the conversation that I invite people to have, which is to think about those leaks and what it costs you and how to prevent it. I mean, clearly it costs you money. Clearly costs you impact that you're creating in the world. It even costs you work-life balance because you have to work so much harder to train up new people. It costs you even innovation because the time that you spend training people, again, one-on-one or one on even a few, but person to person, that's all time that you don't have to think of new things, to drive your company to a new level. And that's dangerous because in today's world, we need to stay at the cutting edge or we're gone very quickly. We'll join the dinosaurs in being extinct. So how can we update our method of sharing knowledge? Well, clearly we have to get stuff out of the brain while we still have that brain available on our team. Before the owner retires, before an employee quits and goes to another gig or maybe retires as well. And that knowledge has to be passed on, yes, to other people, but it also has to be put into some sort of system. It has to be written down. It has to be made teachable. And that's what we do in Brilliance Mining. We look at what knowledge actually is there, or brilliance, as we say, what brilliance is there. We call that brilliance mapping. And then we go after it, we extract it. And that doesn't hurt. It's mostly conversational, really. Or there are a whole number of techniques, actually 5 in all, that we use to capture that knowledge and make it documented, make it in such a way, preserve it in such a way that you can use it again and again and again. But see, it actually, there's another part. Not only can you replicate it because you captured it, but there's another step that we take. We basically polish that knowledge. So if you think of it like this brilliance, if we compare it to diamonds, then you can think of the brain where those diamonds are. We can compare them to a mine. So I say it's a brilliance mine. That's why I'm calling the company the Brilliance Mine. Okay, so you have that mine and there's diamonds in that mine. And some of the diamonds are at the surface. You can clearly see them. And that's the brilliance that people usually are aware of. And then there are some diamonds that are a little bit buried in the soil of that mine or the rock or whatever it is. And it takes a little bit of digging. And then there's brilliance or diamonds that are buried a lot more deeply. And that is really the unconscious competence. And it takes a lot more to get to that. Basically, that's where you need a brilliance miner. Somebody who says, okay, we can see those diamonds here. We can see there's a high return on the effort to collect those diamonds and polish them up and polish up that brilliance basically and make it teachable so that you can teach it to other people. And you actually think about, who am I going to teach it to? So that as you polish that content, it becomes actually appropriate for the target persons that you want to give it to in the future. But there's something else, which is that the brilliance miner says, wait a minute, I see this diamond and this diamond and this diamond, but it's not quite hanging together. There's something missing. And that's when you start to dig and say, okay, wait a minute, there's some more. and you fill in the gaps. I sometimes tell the story of my husband, who is phenomenal at cooking. I'm okay, he's great. Early on in our marriage, he would sometimes start cooking something, and then he'd say, Steph, I need to dash out of the house and take care of an errand. Can you please finish this up? And I'd be like, whoa, 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 wait. What do I do to finish this off? And he would say, well, you do this, 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 and this. 4 things. Okay, great. So I remember the 4 things and I do them. And then he comes back and he takes his, fork full of the food and he says, wait a minute, this doesn't taste right. Did you do that and that and that? I said, well, you told me to do this, this, and this, and this. And I did those things. You didn't say to do that and that and that too. He said, well, everybody knows that. Well, not everybody knows that. And see, that is a silly story for a phenomenon that we go through all the time. That when we teach, an expert teaches, we teach certain steps, the steps we can remember, the diamonds that are on the surface. But what about the diamonds that are not on the surface? We forget them because we don't think of them. And we think everybody knows them anyway, if we do, if we get called on it. But that is the breakdown in the sharing. That's one of the breakdowns, right? We cannot teach the things that are unconscious to us. We need help. And I call that, brilliance mining. Now that we agree that you have brilliance, expertise, experience, and wisdom that you have acquired over many years, and it's your fuel. And most companies have a leaky fuel can. So now we realize, okay, we got to seal up this fuel can, and brilliance mining is the way to do that. I need to add one more thing, and that is, as you become aware of not only the conscious, but the unconscious part of brilliance, as you make them visible, as you put them into a flowchart, a checklist, a video, a training portal, whatever it may be, other people can not only use it, but they can also help you make it better, even better. And that's process improvement. So I sometimes say that I'm an intellectual capitalist, and that's a little bit tongue-in-cheek, right? Because we're using the intellect that you have in your company, which is distributed in different brains, and we're making sure that we actually capitalize on that knowledge in a whole new way. And you can leverage it a lot more if it is not just taught person to person, but it's also taught into a system. So the way you can do that is, as you teach from person to person, you can capture it and do the polishing and put it into a system. And it's very, very helpful to have some fresh eyes to see what's missing, like I said. Okay, so that's part 1 and 2. The third part is this. What about the people you need to engage in this? So let's say you are the business owner. You can see the value of this and you can say, yeah, I'm willing to do this. Sure, I'll work with a brilliance miner and let's get at the knowledge that I have in my brain. But then there's also knowledge, of course, in the brains of you people. And they don't necessarily own the company, or maybe they're an employee owner, or maybe they have a little bit of, they have some shares, or maybe they don't. Either way, there's a fear. What's that fear? What do you think? Well, the fear is, I think, in a lot of companies, is that if I share everything that's of importance to this company into a system that allows the company to leverage that knowledge and allows them to make it immortal, why do they need me? What's my value as an expert? Well, the thing is, we've been taught this all our lives. Go to school, get great grades, get a great education, whether that's at the university or elsewhere. Come out with some certifications. And then get a great job. Learn a lot and become an expert and make yourself indispensable. That's what we've been taught. So Brilliance Mining could produce a bit of fear. Hey, if I share my knowledge, not right before I retire, but way sooner than that, then why do they need me? In order to build a success culture in your company that goes hand in hand with protecting your brilliance, your expertise, your experience, your wisdom in a much better way than most companies are doing, if you want to have that competitive advantage that's so important in today's world, that's changing so fast, you've got to address that fear. And here's how. The way you address that fear is, listen, we're not one of those companies that are short-sighted and that think that, you know, we're going to just squeeze the expertise out of you, that brilliance, we put it in a system, and then we can tell you bye-bye. That would not be smart on our part, because what we need from you is we need to free up more of your plate, you know, that more of your time, so that you can help us stay at the cutting edge. We need your innovation. We need your creativity. And that is what makes you valuable as an expert, not just execution of expertise that you already have within you through all those years of learning and experiencing things and gathering wisdom. And that's the distinction. So in summary, you do have a lot of brilliance in your company, expertise, experience, and wisdom, and you need to protect it. Otherwise, you treat the fuel that got your business to where it is today, that generates the income and the impact that you're creating, right? You treat that with a leaky fuel can. You try to keep it in your company with a leaky fuel can. So therefore, to seal up that fuel can, you need to have a modern way of sharing knowledge. And that cannot be just person to person. The person-to-person part is important, but we also need a system where things are written down, where we make unconscious knowledge visible and actionable, and give other people also the opportunity to contribute to it and make it even better, which, by the way, is a powerful teaching tool, right? Whenever you contribute to something, it becomes part of you, and there's a lot more buy-in. So that's a little secret there. And then we talked about the value of you as an expert. Is it really just that you're dishing out expertise on a daily basis that's only in your head? Or, as I suggest, is it increasingly more important that we see the value of an expert as being able to come up with something new, helping the organization to stay at the cutting edge? Because otherwise, you'll be overrun by people who are breathing down your neck as we speak, or in short order. So think about this. And I invite you to contact me. I do give both keynotes and workshops on the subject about how you can build a new success culture that considers your expertise, in fact, that is deeply rooted in how you treat your expertise, so that you can leverage it and make it immortal. Thank you.